The snows fell heavier than they had in years. Atop the eyrie, cloaked in furs, finer than any northern lord could dream, Petyr Baelish stood on the balcony, watching the Vale stretch out like a silver tapestry below. The boy, sweet, sickly lord. Robin Arryn was somewhere inside, playing with a wooden falcon. He had no idea he'd just lost his kingdom. Petyr didn't smile, not yet. The raven had arrived that morning. Cersei Lannister is queen, the letter read. The sept is gone. Margaery Tyrell, Kevan Lannister, and half the capital's lords dead. Baelish read the words 3 times, then he burned the scroll. Not out of fear, no, but because now it was his time. Cersei's madness was his opportunity. The realm was leaderless, broken, afraid. The North had no king, the Vale had no purpose. The Iron Islands dawn, even the Reach, fractured. And Littlefinger. He had something no one else did. Sansa Stark. Snow flurried over the battlements as Sansa Stark met him in the Godswood. Her face was pale from the cold and something deeper. Distrust. She didn't speak at first. "You said you wouldn't come back," she said eventually. "I lied." Sansa didn't flinch. He stepped closer. "The Queen sits on a throne of bones. Sansa, the North is alone."
"But with me." "With you what?" "I trade one manipulator for another," she snapped. "You helped Ramsay. You let me rot. I saved you." He cut in, calm but cold. "And I can save the North, but I need you." She turned away. "Marry
me." The words were quiet. So quiet they nearly dissolved in the wind. Sansa froze. She didn't look at him. "I'm offering power, not love," he said. "You'll be Queen of the North, and I'll have the Vale. Together we'll be untouchable. We'll end Cersei, end them all." Silence. Then, "You always play the long game, Petyr." He smiled. "This is the last move." They called it a wedding, but it felt more like a battle. Petyr and Sansa were married before the gods, and the old stones of Moat Cailin, a symbolic claim to the neck, the gateway to the south. The lords of the Vale stood behind Petyr. The remaining northern houses, Manderley, Reed, even reluctant Glover, stood behind Sansa. The union was uneasy, but no one objected. In a world of ashes, Petyr Baelish was offering order. Cersei's rule had turned the capital into a hushed grave. Qyburn ruled the Red Keep like a shadow. The mountain kept the streets silent. The people whispered of dragons coming, of a Targaryen queen crossing the sea. Cersei drank more, smiled less, and then the letter arrived. A raven from the north, no.
Seal, no name, only one line. The last piece has moved. Cersei froze.
Her wine spilled. Cersei Lannister stared at the Iron Throne like it was a trap. Because it was. She had won through fire, wildfire. The great sept and everyone inside had burned. She had no rival now, no Tyrells, no Sparrows, no mercy. But her crown felt heavier each day. She sat alone more often. Tommen was gone. Jaime had left on some silent errand in the Riverlands and hadn't returned. Even Ser Gregor, hulking and ever-present, felt more like a curse than protection. She didn't.
See the knife coming.
Because it didn't come through force, it came through a whisper. Littlefinger's ravens flew faster than armies. He sent messages to the remnants of House Tyrell, those who had survived the explosion and fled south, to Dawn, promising vengeance for Elia Martell, to the Iron Islands promising gold, to every desperate lord without a queen. He told them of Cersei's madness, of her wildfire, of her crimes. He included copies of the original blueprints to the Sept cellars, marked with wildfire caches, blueprints he had stolen from Pycelle years ago. He signed nothing, but everyone knew who was pulling the strings. He didn't need to raise a sword. He simply made the world watch Cersei collapse under her own weight. The kitchen staff began to disappear. Varys's old spies, revived under a new master, poisoned the confidence of the Queen's court. One by one her allies died mysteriously. Her hand, Qyburn, was found hanging in his own laboratory, his face twisted in a permanent grin. Cersei became paranoid. She refused to eat. She struck her servants. She talked to herself at night, and then a letter arrived by crow tied with a black thread. The realm deserves peace, not fire. Surrender, and I'll spare your name. There was no signature, just a smear of winter rose wax. Sansa's wax. It wasn't a siege. It was a surrender. When the Knights of the Vale arrived at the gates of King's Landing, no banners flew to stop them. The gold cloaks opened the gates. Half had been bribed, the rest deserted. Cersei stood at the top of the Red Keep, dressed in black, a goblet of wine in her hand, and wildfire in her veins. She didn't fight. She waited for the end. They say she tried to ignite a final cache beneath the throne. But the fuse had been cut. When they found her, she was kneeling before the Iron Throne, silent, broken. The Queen of Ashes had been outplayed by the Master of Whispers. Petyr Baelish didn't wear a crown when he walked into the throne room. He wore dark velvet, trimmed with silver thorns, and beside him stood Sansa Stark, her red hair braided, with white ribbons, her face unreadable. The lords of Westeros, those left, gathered for the coronation. They had little choice. The South had no leaders. The West was burned. The Reach broken. The North unified. Petyr knelt before the Iron Throne, then rose and sat. It was quiet. The Master of Coin had become the king of the 7 kingdoms. The Iron Throne was colder than Petyr had imagined. Not physically, it was warm from the sun pouring in through the shattered dome above, but cold in spirit, silent, heavy, judgmental, like the ghosts of every king who failed still lingered on its edges. Baelish had climbed from nothing, brothel-born, mocked, discarded, and now he ruled everything but the one person he needed beside him. She wasn't smiling. Queen by name, prisoner by truth, Sansa's room in the Red Keep was gilded and guarded. She could roam the halls, sit beside the throne, wear the finest gowns, but nothing changed what she knew. She was a pawn, dressed like a queen. She had played the long game too, learned from Cersei, survived Ramsay, outwitted Lisa, but Littlefinger was different. He wore affection like armor, soft on the outside, lethal beneath. At night, he would stand on the balcony and talk about our kingdom. She would pretend to listen. And when he asked for her hand, she would give it, frozen, silent. But in her mind, she whispered another name, Arya. She came as a shadow. A girl with no name slipped past the gates of King's Landing, wearing the face of a beggar, then a merchant, then a crow handler. No one noticed her until she wanted them to. Arya Stark had come home, and she had brought a list. She watched her sister from the alleyways. Sansa looked strong, her chin high, her back straight, but
Arya saw the chains.
they weren't made of iron. They were made of silk. Words. Control. Littlefinger stood behind her in every public gathering, always a hand on her waist, a whisper at her neck. He had killed their father, lied to their mother, betrayed their house, and now he wore a king's ring. Arya sharpened her blade. Baelish ruled from the shadows. He barely sat the throne. He preferred rooms where no one looked directly at him. He replaced the small council with spies, merchants, and secret keepers. He outlawed war between houses. He raised taxes on noblemen and lowered them on small folk. He spread his network like a spider's web. From dawn to the wall, no secret was safe. But one rumor still troubled him. The girl with many faces walks again. And it terrified him. On the anniversary of his coronation, King Petyr Baelish held a feast in the great hall. Laughter echoed, musicians played. Sansa wore a red velvet gown with direwolves stitched in silver thread, and beside her Baelish drank from a jeweled goblet, smug in his victory, until the lights went out. One by one, the torches lining the hall died, not from wind but from silence, and when they flickered again, a figure stood before the throne, small, hooded, still, Arya. No one moved. Baelish stood. "Who dares?" But before he could finish, she removed the hood, and the hall gasped. The Dushart Stark wolf had come home. For a moment, no one in the throne room breathed. Arya Stark stood in the center of the hall, her face half lit by the dying torchlight. No armor, no banners, just her and Needle, slim and sharp at her side like a whisper made of steel. King Petyr Baelish didn't move, but his eyes darted. The guards didn't act. They looked to him, then to Sansa. Sansa's gaze was locked on her sister. Her lips parted, but no words came. And Arya, she smiled. "Hello, Littlefinger." Petyr stepped down from the throne, slow and calculated. His voice was soft, smooth, wrapping itself around the room like a noose. "Lady Arya," he said, "you shouldn't be here." "No," Arya replied, "you shouldn't be alive." He laughed gently. "Do you have any idea how many people tried to kill me and failed?" "I only need once." He turned to Sansa, cold sweat now visible along his brow. "Stop her," he said. "This is treason. Your sister is mad." Sansa rose from her seat. "She's not mad," she said. "She's right." And then the hall shifted. From behind the pillars, lords of the North and Vale stepped forward, armed, silent, grim. Lady Brienne, Sir Royce, even Maester Volkan. Petyr looked from face to face. "No," he whispered. "We know everything," Sansa said, voice firm. "The
murder of Jon Arryn, the betrayal of my father, the lies you fed us all. You played the game well." Petyr's charm cracked. "You wouldn't have survived without me, and you wouldn't have power without killing the people who trusted you."
He tried to speak, but his lips trembled. "You said you loved me," Sansa whispered. "And maybe that's true. But love built on control isn't love, it's slavery." And then she stepped aside. Arya moved. Needle pierced his heart in silence. No great cry. No last gasp. Just a faint, shocked breath as Petyr Baelish, Master of Coin, Lord of Harrenhal, Protector of the Vale, King of the Seven Kingdoms, fell to his knees. Blood spilled across the stone floor, a red thread unraveling the web. Arya stepped back. Sansa watched, her eyes wet, but her chin never wavered. The guards didn't move. The court stayed still. There would be no funeral, only freedom. The Iron Throne stood empty again. Sansa refused.
The throne is cursed, she said. Let the South rule itself.
Instead, she crowned herself Queen in the North, with Arya beside her as her shadow and blade. The Seven Kingdoms fractured into peace. Dawn crowned their own prince. The Reach became a democracy of lords. The Riverlands followed the North. For the first time in memory there was no king, only stories. In the crypts of Winterfell, Sansa stood before her father's grave. He was clever, Arya said beside her, quiet. But clever dies easy when it has no heart, Sansa nodded. He wanted the throne, I want a future. And what about me? Sansa smiled. You're my sword. In the end, Littlefinger won every game until the day the board flipped, and the last secret died with him. Because when you play the Game of Thrones with wolves, you bleed